rather. We leave that there. Let's head to the NBA, shall we? Houston may have a problem. Without CP3, the Clippers were still able to snatch home court advantage. Our Chris Broussard was at the game last night, and he joins us now from Houston to talk about said game. Blake Griffin with 26, 14, and 3 lifted the team, but the Rockets had 24 turnovers, the most they've had in a playoff game this season.
Guys stepped up and made plays. I mean, Matt Barnes was huge, Austin Rivers, Jamal Crawford, DJ, Big Baby. I can go on down the list, and everybody stepped up, and that's what we need, especially when you're missing a guy like Chris.
Blake was just, he was sensational. You know, it's funny, I got on him because he started doing the Chris thing. He stopped looking to score at one point, and I told him, well, we need you to do everything, and he did it.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's a late night and an early morning for you, but we appreciate it. We're playing musical chairs with our guest debaters today. So let's talk about the game specifically. Was that really about good Clippers or just bad Rockets?
Well, it was a mixture of both. I mean, I have to give the Clippers all the credit in the world. We know Blake Griffin had the triple-double with 26, 14 rebounds and 13 assists. But you look at the entire team, everybody stepped up. They had 31 assists on 41 made field goals. That's incredible, especially when you consider they were missing the best assist man in the league in Chris Paul. Matt Barnes steps up with 20 points. J.J. Redick and Austin Rivers give you 17 points apiece. We all raved about what Austin Rivers did against San Antonio in that one game. But for him to start a second-round playoff game, this is a guy that has had very little success in the NBA. To go out there and score 17 points is huge. So it was an entire team effort. I didn't even mention Jamal Crawford with the great 20 points off the bench. Now, that said, Houston made some terrible mistakes. They played poorly, okay? All they could do was get out in transition. They had 28 fast break points. When they were in the half court, their offense was a mess. James Harden needs to be more aggressive. He's an unselfish player. So when they, when they showing 2 and 3 defenders at him, he's going to give the ball up. But he's going to have to be more aggressive. He only took 13 shots and only got to the foul line 6 times. So I think it was a combination of both. I don't want to take anything away from the Clippers because for them to win that game on short rest without CP3 was just tremendous. But clearly the Rockets need to make a lot of adjustments. They played very poorly. 24 turnovers? 24 turnovers. The Clippers had 23, which they have an excuse because Chris Paul was out. But 24 turnovers by the Rockets is ridiculous.
I'm with you, Chris. I'm going to put this even more on the Rockets. As sensationally as the Clippers played in the second half, and it was sensational, I think you would agree with me that the Rockets didn't take the Clippers seriously enough and ultimately paid a severe price for that. And, again, the game started in Houston's favor. Again, you were there. I was just watching on TV. But speaking of Austin Rivers, he just looked overmatched in the first quarter, as well he should have in a game of this magnitude as he gets pushed into the starting lineup. They, as a team, the Clippers, had 8 turnovers in the first quarter. And somehow they managed to barely hang on, even though the Rockets went up by 13 on a Prigioni 3 with 8 minutes left in the second quarter. And, Chris, that's when you step on the throat, man. That's when you put that team away. And James Harden just disappeared in the second quarter. That was the quarter where they let it get away from them. James Harden had 0 points in the second quarter. He had 1 assist. And all of a sudden you look up at halftime, and Doc's team is hanging within 4. So they're down 13, and in the next 8 minutes, they cut it all the way back to 4. And as Doc said after the game, that's when we won the game because we went to halftime thinking, hey, we got a chance. They had life. And yet James Harden, again, runner-up for MVP, by his standards, he had a terrible game. I know he had 20 points, and he did have 12 assists, but he had 9 turnovers himself, got to the free throw line only 6 times, made 5, but he averages over 10 free throws a game, as you well know. And it was just such a quiet 20 from him. And then, as you pointed out, Blake Griffin was just astonishing in the second half. I didn't know he had that in him. 10 assists in the second half. I mean, he was BG3. He was playing point forward. You know, he's driving and dishing. And then down the stretch, just in the second half alone, J.J. Redick has 17. Austin Rivers, or Austin Powers, whichever is one or the other, I guess, had 14. And Matt Barnes had 13, all in the second half, as they made 11 out of 16 three-pointers. That's unbelievable to me. That's the same kind of shooting they carried over from Game 7 against my San Antonio Spurs at Staples. And the truth was that the Rockets, who should have blown out the Clippers, ended up getting blown out at home in Game 1. That's mind-boggling to me. And a lot of that has to be on a James Harden, who was just too quiet last night as the leader and the driving force of that team. That's just me.
Well, Skip, the difference between these two teams, at least last night, and I really think, period, and we're going to see it going forward, is mental toughness. Whenever anybody talks about the Rockets and why they are not considered, you know, they're contenders, I guess. They're an elite team. But why they're not viewed as a team that can win it all or win the West is because people don't think they have the mental toughness. Dwight Howard, we know that's his reputation. But also James Harden. They think this is a silly, loosey-goosey team. And I'll tell you what, the Clippers, Doc Rivers, I've been somewhat critical of him since he's been in L.A. because he had not brought this team any further, really, than Vinny Del Negro. And I wasn't seeing Doc's imprint on this team. I see it now. We saw it last series. I talked to the players before the game, after the game. They said, look, Doc has really, you know, we've taken on his personality now. He's finally gotten through to these guys. And they said themselves, we were not battle-tested before. If you look back last year, especially against Oklahoma City, in the past, when the going got tough in the playoffs, they folded. Chris Paul had some struggles down the stretch, as we know. What they did against San Antonio has totally transformed this team within themselves. This is what they were telling me. Mentally, they like, we know now we're ballot tested. To come back from being blown out in Game 3, to come back from DeAndre Jordan basically kind of giving away Game 5 with the offensive basket interference, to win 6 and 7 against the defending champs. They told me, look, before we felt like we could win, we could win. Now we know. Inside, we know we can win. And they rolled that confidence into that game last night, even without Chris Paul. And Houston doesn't have that degree of mental toughness.
I am completely with you. I'm a big Doc Rivers fan, and Stephen A. and I have gone back and forth all year about the Clippers' mental makeup. Do they have the basketball sort of intangibles or character to advance in the playoffs, to go deep into the playoffs? And I was always unsure until Game 7 against my Spurs. And I said to you yesterday that they came of age. They arrived against the Spurs. And I'm with you. That was an incredible carryover of that new confidence. I'm not sure what, exactly how Doc did it, but he worked on their psyches. He lifted their psyches into a place where they finally believed they could make big shots and big plays when it mattered. And they used to not be able to. I know the Spurs, the book on the Clippers in the past was, they'll fold when it's time.
Eventually, yeah.
And they didn't fold when it was time in the fourth quarter of Game 7. Obviously, they just shot the lights out. Chris Paul made play after play. He was just crazy. I mean, the shot he made to win the game was just, I said yesterday, degree of difficulty. That was a 9.9 on a scale of 10. But he did it, and he made the clutch free throws. And I just think you're right. They just took off, and we saw the development of that last night in the second half when they didn't even have their leader and they won.
You know what, Chris? Let's talk about the other game in the East, shall we?
Can I ask a real quick question before you do that?
Sure.
Chris, do you think Chris Paul will play Game 2 or should he play Game 2? Just quick thought.
I'm a no on both.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll play. I talked with Chris after the game. He didn't give a definitive answer, but I don't think he's going to play. He can't jog. He told me last night, I still can't jog. It's fairly damaged.
So are you saying?
I think you'll see him in Game 3.
In Game 3. So if he can't jog, you think Game 3 is where we'll see him?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, let's talk
No
about
need to risk it. I mean, even if you go back to L.A. with a split, I mean, and then you get Chris Paul at close to 100% versus bringing him on at 75% or whatever he may be in game 2. I mean, it's not totally 100% sure he won't play, but I think you'll see him in a suit tomorrow night.
To the